All right, I want to welcome people to the Joint Entities meeting, and it is Monday, October 20th, 2025, and it is just at 4:30 p.m., and we have a room full, so welcome to everyone that is here. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the welcomes and introductions, which is item number 2. We'll go around the room of all of the folks that are here, part of the joint entities, our elected officials. So we'll go around the room. If there is an elected official that is out in the periphery, we invite you to the table. So I'll start. I am Iowa City Mayor Bruce Teague, and we'll go to my right.
Hi, Mayor. I'm Louise Fromm, Mayor, University Heights.
Rod Sullivan, Johnson County Board of Supervisors.
Sean Harmson, Iowa City City Council.
Rich Vogelzang, Coralville City Council.
Mandy Remington, Johnson County Supervisor.
Mitch Lingo, Director for Iowa City Community School District.
Jane Finch, ICCSD Board.
Vifix Mara Rise, Johnson County Supervisor.
Molly Abraham, Iowa City School Board.
Oliver Weiline, Iowa City Councilor.
Tim Orris, Tiffin City Council, Mayor Pro Tem.
Charlie Eastham, Iowa City School Board.
Lori Goodrich, Coralville City Council.
Laura Burgess, Iowa City City Council.
Josh Moe, Iowa City City Council.
North Liberty Mayor Chris Hoffman.
Megan Alter, Iowa City City Councilor.
And is there any staff that is sitting in for their organization? If so, please state your name at this time.
Matt Degner, Superintendent, Iowa City Schools.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
Mayor Teague, Lisa Green Douglas, Johnson County Board of Supervisors.
Great, welcome. We have folks on Zoom. Thank you for jumping in there. All right. We'll continue with anyone else on Zoom.
Yes, I am on Coralville City Council.
Will you repeat that, please?
It's Ivan, Coralville City Council.
All right, welcome. All right, and we'll go in-house to anyone that is representing an organization, a joint entity. I heard Matt Dagner, school superintendent. Anyone else? All right, thank you. We're going to move on to item number 3, which is community comment. I want to make known that the public comment is intended so members of the public may be heard by the joint entities, because community comment is for items not properly noticed on the agenda. The joint entities cannot engage in discussion or debate due to open meeting laws. And this will also be an opportunity for folks to comment on items on the agenda should they, because this will be the only opportunity for the public. I want to get a show of hands of how many individuals that would like to speak during this community comment time. All right, I see 3 here, I see 1 here. Are there any more? So I see 4 people, and we have 10 minutes. Does anyone need an interpreter? All right, so 2 folks need an interpreter. All right, so I think we'll just make math very easy. If we have 4 people total, why don't we go with, oh, I'm sorry. So I'm blanking right now. Yes?
Did you say 10 minutes?
Yeah, we have 10 minutes. So 2 minutes apiece, and the 2 individuals will get 4 minutes that need an interpreter. We're going to invite you up to the mic here. And each person will state their name and the city they're from.
Mary McCann from Iowa City. Excuse me. I'm sorry I couldn't attend earlier meetings. I've been having health problems. But I've lived 18 years in different towns in Johnson County, and I thought that it might aid conversations. I hope I can talk fast enough. Oliver, you mentioned recently that you imagined that the culture of Iowa City Police Department would change if it shared a building with the sheriff's teams. Here's a story that you may not have noticed, and I'd be happy to talk anytime to you. Growing up, I thought my parents made decisions based on their lives for all of us. Raising my own children, I realized that their needs shaped every choice I made. It's the same for law enforcement. The culture of a law enforcement agency is learned by focusing on the needs of the community that they serve. When officers patrol our streets, they learn the rhythms of our lives. They notice children walking to school, shops opening and closing, lights on or off a porch. They remember faces and patterns no one else takes time to notice. These observations and their towns people show them how to serve and protect in ways that fit each neighborhood, a piece of the town's culture. Iowa City has a unique cultural heartbeat. Knowing the rhythm guides the ICPD and keeps officers safe on the job. Placing their officers in a joint facility with the sheriff's team simply cannot change Iowa City's ethos. The sheriff's team is always out there for every town, every place in the county. That complicates understanding a single town's culture. So there's always an effort to keep same officers' faces showing up in the same towns. Johnson County is not like Iowa City or any other town. In moments of danger, the sheriff's deputies rely on training, learning a town's culture, and how neighbors live in community. If we want law enforcement to serve the greater good, we can improve that by how accessible we are and be open to our officers. Their work is more dangerous.
I'm going to
than
give you
most of us.
15 more seconds.
Thank you. Their work is more dangerous than any of us would ever risk.
Thank you. And the calculations were a little off. It should have been at least 2.5 minutes, so that's why I allowed her to go 2.5 minutes. So we're going to go with the next speakers, which will get 2.5 minutes, and then the two that need interpretation will get 5 minutes each. Welcome.
Buenas tardes, soy Eva Castro.
Good afternoon, I'm Eva Castro,
Representante de mi familia y miembro de Escucha Mi Voz junto con toda mi familia.
representing my family, a member of Escucha Mi Voz, as well as my family.
Hace un mes, Jorge Eliezer González, trabajador emigrante, fue arrestado por ICE.
About a month ago, Jorge, an immigrant worker, was arrested by ICE
Sin ninguna clase de identificación, sin orden de arresto y en forma violenta.
ICE who had no identification on them, who had no warrant for arrest, and who had no reason to take him in a violent way.
Continúa arrestado en Mosquetín.
He continues to be detained in Muscatine,
Acusado de fraude sin tener pruebas.
He's been accused of fraud without any evidence.
Somos una familia como muchas o como la familia de migrantes que viene a este país con esperanzas.
We are a family like all others that come to this country with hope,
A buscar oportunidades, a buscar protección ante todo, a buscar seguridad y un mejor vivir.
to look for opportunities, to look for protection, for a better life, and to work.
Y hoy la realidad es otra. Nos encontramos con miedo, irrumpieron nuestra familia.
Today, the reality is something else. We have a lot of fear, and our family has been broken.
Y les agradezco el espacio.
I thank you for this space.
También les pido con mucho respeto su apoyo para que esto no siga ocurriendo en las familias emigrantes.
And I ask you with all respect for your support that this doesn't happen again to other families.
Somos personas honestas y trabajadoras.
We are honest people and hard workers.
Merecemos que nuestros derechos también sean evaluados y que no por ser emigrantes seamos señalados como delincuentes.
We deserve, just like anyone else, that our rights are protected and we're not treated like criminals.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next speaker is welcomed at this time. And I will ask the speakers to be sure to write their name in the sign-in, or there are stickers in the back where you can drop it in the basket. And I'll have you just are you speaking at this time? Yep. We'll have to have someone hand that out. Thank you. Welcome. Please state your name and city you're from.
My name is Ruby Cáceres. I'm from Iowa, but I'm from Venezuela. I'm gonna read a letter to the Johnson County Municipal Joint Entities. Thank you for the opportunity to address this joint session of all governments. Together, we can take simple, practical steps to protect the safety and dignity and constitutional rights of the workers and residents across Johnson County. Even before the current workplace rate and family separation crisis, over 50% of Latino families in Johnson County report being chronically homeless, double up or triple up to survive. Despite this, Latinos residents receive virtually none of the local housing vouchers. We ask the joint entity to adopt and promote the following fourth amendments workplace protection by no later than Monday, November 3rd. First, require a judicial warrant before allowing law enforcement or ICE into non-public areas. Second, designate a work safety space in city and county buildings during informants of emergencies. Third, provide know your rights training for all staff and local officials. Fourth, post entrance notice reading no public area warrant required. Fifth, encourage local business to adopt similar policies. Sixth, fully fund workplace safety, permanent supported housing, legal aid, and health negation for immigrants, workers, and families. This step all hold due process, human dignity, and community safe. By taking them together, our local government can model what it means to protect the essential workers who sustain our communities. Thank you for your leadership and partnership in this urgent war. With respect and gratitude, member of the Escucha Mi Voz.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll have the last and final speaker at this time. Welcome. Please state your name and city you're from.
My name is Elida. I live in Iowa City, but I am from Colombia. Soy inmigrante. Eso significa vivir con una sombra de incertidumbre, con un miedo real a la separación y a no ser visto como una persona completa.
I'm an immigrant. That means living under a shadow of uncertainty with a real fear of separation and of not being seen as a whole person.
Pero el valor que tengo aquí hoy, frente a ustedes, no surge de la ausencia de ese miedo.
But the courage I have to stand here today in front of you does not come from the absence of that fear.
Surge de algo mucho más profundo y esencial, la experiencia compartida.
It comes from something much deeper and more essential, shared experience.
Miro a otros inmigrantes, a las familias que acompaño y me veo a mí.
I look at other immigrants, at the families I accompany, and I see myself.
Veo mi propio camino, mis propias luchas, las veces que he sentido que no pertenezco o que soy invisible ante la ley.
I see my own path, my own struggles, the times I have felt that I don't belong or that I am invisible before the law.
Entiendo en carne propia el peso de cargar la esperanza de una vida mejor mientras se vive con la incertidumbre de la ley.
I understand in my own flesh the weight of carrying the hope of a better life while living with the uncertainty of the law.
Sé que mi posición es vulnerable, pero esa vulnerabilidad es mi mayor arma.
I know my position is vulnerable, but that vulnerability is my greatest weapon.
Demuestra que incluso desde el lugar menos pensado se puede ser un agente de cambio. Mi valor es un acto de amor propio colectivo. Muchas gracias.
It proves that even from the most unexpected place, one can be an agent of change. My courage is an act of collective self-love. Thanks.
Thank you. And thanks to all the individuals that came to speak today. Thank you all. All right, we're going to move on to item number 4, local option sales tax, and this will be presented by Mackenzie DeRue from Greater Iowa City. So welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to provide an update on the local option sales tax campaign in Coralville, Iowa City, and North Liberty. For those of you that I don't know, my name is Mackenzie DeRue, and I work as the Senior Director of Advocacy at Greater Iowa City, Inc., the economic development organization for Johnson County. But today I'm here on behalf of the Local Makes Sense campaign team that's encouraging voters to vote yes for the local option sales tax in 2 weeks, or now, because early voting is available. A quick update for you all, and then happy to answer any questions you may have. Conversations about the local option sales tax in those 3 municipalities began about a year ago, but our campaign efforts really took off in August when it became clear that all 3 cities would be putting local option sales tax on the ballot this fall. We formed an executive committee of staff from Greater Iowa City, as well as Think Iowa City, our Convention and Visitors Bureau, affordable housing nonprofit leaders, some of whom are in the room today, and then community champions from each municipality who lived in that city and could activate other volunteers from their community to talk with voters in their community. So far, we feel really positive about how the campaign has been going. We have had over 50 presentations to various service clubs, parent-teacher organizations, and business groups. We have received unanimous or near unanimous endorsements from the Iowa City, Coralville, North Liberty City Councils, and anyone running for council, as well as the school board. So for the many of you who are in this room and have supported our efforts, thank you very much. We have an advertisement currently that's running on streaming platforms, social media, as well as a radio ad, which I can play for you quickly.
Vote yes for local option sales tax. A single penny helps fund what matters: property tax relief, housing, safety, and parks. Groceries, gas, and prescriptions are not taxed. 93% of Iowa cities already have a local option sales tax, and visitors spent over $450 million in Johnson County last year. This penny helps capture that spending for our community. Keep it local. Vote yes November 4th. Learn more at yeslocaloption.com.
We also have a direct mailer that went out last week. Many of you likely voters, if that hit your inbox. And then we are currently, in the next 2 weeks, we're working on text message reminders to vote with information, as well as dropping literature off in communities with some volunteers. Also, thank you to some of the candidates who are running who have included our materials in their own door knocking. It's been extremely helpful. Feedback from voters so far has been overall very positive. There has been no organized opposition campaign, and even individuals who have previously voted against the local option sales tax that we've talked to, many of them are planning to vote yes this time around, given sort of the changing funding landscape at the state and federal level. So the next 2 weeks, we'll continue to push until Election Day. We've already received endorsement from the Gazette and are reaching out to the Press Citizen and the Corridor Business Journal. And then we have letters to the editor lined up from community champions that we'll be sending to the paper in the next 2 weeks. Anything that I can answer, any questions? I have some copies of cowboy cards if you want to see literature and you haven't. I'm sporting my button. Many of you have one already.
Hearing nothing. Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to item number 5, which is permanent supportive housing discussion. And this is a request to watch public presentation prior to the meeting. So we'll start up a video at this time. Wait, did I read that right? No.
That was our homework.
Yeah. Oh.
I don't need to watch me again.
So guess who didn't do their homework? Go right ahead, please. Welcome.
Chrissy, go.
How do I pull up the slideshow?
Did everyone
do it? And then could you put it in the?
Yes. I got halfway through. I give you some credit. Yes. I mean, I know the topic.
Actually.
That's a lot of credit.
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity to present to everyone on the subject of permanent supportive housing. My name is Chrissy Canganelli. I'm Executive Director of Shelter House, and I'm joined virtually by my colleagues with the Corporation for Supportive Housing. Corporation for Supportive Housing is a nonprofit with a national footprint. They are a technical assistance provider and help communities build capacity for permanent supportive housing. And my colleagues, Amy Stetzel and Gabe Schuster, with Corporation for Supportive Housing, will be presenting substantive information throughout the course of this presentation. Amy Stetzel will provide an overview of permanent supportive housing and describe what permanent supportive housing is. Gabe Schuster will detail the evaluation that we've contracted with CSH to do. Shelter House engaged CSH to provide an analysis of the need of permanent supportive housing in Johnson County. And Gabe will lead us through a conversation about the methodology behind that and the initial indicators. And then I will be providing some information on our current capacity and the impact and the outcomes that we've seen from the provision of permanent supportive housing so far. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amy.
Wonderful. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. It's always nice when technology works. Thanks, everyone, for having us be in the room with you all. My name is Amy Stetzel. I'm the Upper Midwest Director for Corporation for Supportive Housing. Really quickly, CSH, we are a national nonprofit headquartered in New York City, but we have regional offices throughout the nation. And one of those offices is right here in the Upper Midwest. So I get to work with all of the great folks in Iowa, as well as Minnesota, Wisconsin, North and South Dakota, on a variety of ways to increase housing stability for residents of those states. And you can see here, some of our work in Iowa has included what we call a frequent user system engagement initiative. That is a signature initiative of ours that we do across the nation, and we did here in partnership with the folks in Iowa City, specifically the Chrissy and her team at Shelter House, that really led to Cross Park Place. We also, and I'll speak to this in a little bit, we worked together to help create definitions and standards for permanent supportive housing in Iowa. We have also been partnering with advocates and coalitions across the state to fight a lot of the criminalization laws. There's been, I'm sure as you all know, two laws, statewide laws that have been attempted, but that have one that kind of lost on procedural grounds, and the other one most recently that was pushed back. We also this summer ended a supportive housing institute here in Iowa, which was with 7 teams across the state of Iowa, all corners of the state, coming together for 6 months to think about, hey, in our community, this is really what we need. How do we take this dream of need and make it a reality? And going through a lot of training to figure out what are the money pieces we put in place, what are the service pieces we put in place. And now we get to work with Shelter House on this project that we're speaking to you all about today, all about this needs assessment, this community engagement that we're doing. Next slide. Thank you. So I want to give a big shout out to the Iowa Center of Excellence for Behavioral Health, which is through the University of Iowa. They pulled together a group of stakeholders to say, how do we define supportive housing here in Iowa? Shelter House was a critical part of those stakeholders. And usually I'm not a fan of reading slides, but I do want to read this definition that was pulled together by Iowa stakeholders on what PSH means. So permanent supportive housing is an evidence-based, minimal barrier housing intervention prioritized for individuals with complex, multi-occurring conditions that meet fidelity to established standards. Individuals in PSH programs live with affordability, autonomy, and dignity through the combination of person-centered, flexible, and voluntary support services. And they've got a legal right to remain in their housing as defined by the terms of standard renewable lease agreement. Access to and maintenance of housing is available to individuals who meet this PSH eligibility criteria and is not based on housing readiness requirements like sobriety, behavioral, or program compliance. Thank you for that. Thank you for indulging me in that. And
sorry.
One more. There you go. Thank you. The thing I do want to point out that permanent supportive housing is not. So I often say, we just read that big definition, but at its core, permanent supportive housing is deeply affordable housing connected to services for the folks in our communities have some of the most complex needs, right? But what it isn't is it's not a treatment method or model. It's not time limited. Folks can stay for as long as they would like to stay. They've got a lease. And it's not a group home or a similar type of licensed community care facility. Next slide. Again, the Iowa Center of Excellence for Behavioral Health pulled together standards to say what makes it quality, right? Like at the end of the day, you can have deeply affordable housing connected to services, but if none of it's really quality, it's not going to get you the outcomes you want. So how do we get those outcomes? Well, these are the things that research across the nation over and over again that tells us that this model works when done to fidelity. These are those fidelity standards, right? It's got to be minimal barrier. We got to have access to voluntary services. That's part of the kind of movement to change for a human being is I'm going to do this voluntarily, not because I have to or I'm mandated to. The housing has to be affordable and integrated into a community. And folks that live in those housing have to have choices about different kinds of options that are available to them, and as well as this piece goes along with as well the legal pieces around tenant protections through a lease. So what does this mean when we do these things to fidelity? This is what this shows us, and it shows us this again and again and again, is that it ends homelessness. And not only just ends homelessness, but ends homelessness for some of our most intense folks in our community, people who have the biggest health barriers, the largest, amounts is not the right word, but really just the folks who are just the most unhealthy people in our community from a behavioral health perspective to a physical health perspective to needing substance use programming. And it really, really, really works. People stay in housing. They gain employment, they get better connections to healthcare, and it also reduces huge costs on communities when those same folks are no longer going to other emergency systems of care to get those services or get their needs met. And so now I'm going to hand it over, I think, to
me.
Do I hand this back to Chrissy? That's
Yep,
what I thought.
So as Amy said, permanent supportive housing works. And when it's done to fidelity standard, it delivers. It ends homelessness. And that has certainly been our experience here in our community. On the left-hand side of the slide, you'll see some national outcomes. Incarceration rate declines for people pre-housing versus post-housing in permanent supportive housing, a 52% decrease. More than 83% remaining housed for at least 1 year. Emergency room visits declining by 57%, and emergency detoxification services declining by 87%. In our community, our experience has exceeded the national outcome trends. Looking at just tenants at Cross Park Place, which is just a sampling, and the most recent sampling of the tenants 2 years prior to housing, 2 years after housing, we see a 68% decrease in arrests. When we looked at incarceration rates in partnership with the City of Iowa City, when Data-Driven Justice Initiative funding was available for the city to provide data analysis and cross-sector data analysis, we were seeing more along the lines of 73% decrease in incarceration rates 1 year into housing. 98.8%, so nearly 99% are remaining housed for at least 1 year. Our trends, if we were to do a more longitudinal analysis, it is much more significant. The vast majority of folks are retaining their housing for many years. And in fact, out of our single site properties, we have 60 units of single site permanent supportive housing. Only 1 out of 93 tenants since January of 2019 has exited to homelessness. When, again, the City of Iowa City had grant funding for cross-sector data analysis, we were able to look at the pre-housing versus post-housing impacts on health changes. And just for 2 tenants that we were able to analyze some of this pre- and post-housing impact on the healthcare system, we see I'm going to get this right, on tenant 1, a 99% decrease in health costs. For tenant 2, a 74% decrease in health costs, and overall a 78% reduction in ER visits as compared to the national outcome, which is 57%. And now I'll hand it back to Gabe.
Thanks, Chrissy. Hi, everyone. My name is Gabe Schuster. I'm a senior program manager at CSH on our data and analytics team. I'm based out of Brooklyn, New York. A lot of my portfolio revolves around working with communities on needs assessments, so looking at a lot of data collected across a lot of different systems within a community, whether that's a county, a city, a state, and thinking about what we see in that data around the needs for supportive housing, as well as other interventions to effectively end homelessness in a community. And when we talk about ending homelessness, we're talking about achieving what, in the homeless sector, we refer to as functional zero. And this has 3 components. When we talk about functional zero homelessness, we mean that homelessness is rare, it's brief, and it's non-recurring. So rare, that it is uncommon that a household, whether it's an individual or a family, falls into homelessness in the first place, that it is brief in that they don't stay homeless for very long. They're connected to the resources that they need to regain housing quickly, and non-recurring in that those interventions that they're provided with are correctly targeted to them so that they receive the right level of support so that once they are housed, they stay housed. And there's a lot of different interventions that play into that network. Permanent supportive housing is one of the bigger pieces on that really non-recurring side, we can talk also about prevention, what we can do to try and mitigate people's experiences of homelessness in the first place. On the other end, permanent supportive housing, as Amy was describing, really is that intervention for the highest needs individuals in the community. Next slide. As Chrissy mentioned earlier, Shelter House engaged us to conduct a needs assessment across Johnson County. And what these needs assessments look like is a lot of conversations with different stakeholders locally, as well as deep dives into what data is being collected. So we've worked through Johnson County data on homeless engagements and entries into the homeless management information system, to assess ultimately, what is the total need for supportive housing? What is the gap between what the community currently has on offer and what is needed, broken out by household type and intervention type. And there's a lot of different components that go into that. So we have the data on households that are experiencing homelessness, the services that they receive. We also look at the current inventory and how it's functioning, and then different models around how we could potentially bring that that supportive housing and other interventions to bear. Next slide. This is just a sort of visual of that process that we're thinking through. So as I was describing, we pulled data from the homeless management information system, but then also have been engaging a number of different stakeholders locally on the behavioral health side, on the physical health side with UIHC. We've spoken with the sheriff's department, with the chief of police, across a number of different sectors to help inform the assumptions that then go into that model. So we look at who is experiencing homelessness, but then also we want to make estimates around what share of those individuals have needs consistent with supportive housing, and what share maybe have needs for a less service intensive or resource intensive intervention, so that we can right size the interventions that are available within the community to the community. So we have those conversations to really adjust the need, and this is a very iterative process. So we feed that into the model. We come out with preliminary numbers on what that need looks like. We'll get into that in just a few slides. And then we bring that back to those same stakeholders and to the community so that we can incorporate any feedback. It's not uncommon that when we start to show numbers, communities see that and say, oh, you know what, there's actually other pieces that we, that this brings to mind that we want to involve in the process. And so that gets fed back into the model and we repeat it. Ultimately, we then also look at the costs of those different interventions. So what it costs to develop new supportive housing, to operate it, to provide the services that are attached to those units, so that we can also, effectively model out what it would cost over, it could be 5 years, over 10 years, whatever we want to really, whatever scenario we want to model out, what it would cost to bring to bear and sustain those units of supportive housing. Next slide. So one big piece of that modeling process is also looking at what we currently have. And Johnson County has a good share of supportive housing, and it is operating really well. Currently, a lot of the majority of the supportive housing in the community is operated by Shelter House, and those units are at 90% utilization. People will see that and think, oh, cool, we've got 10% to move. It's 90% is what we think of as kind of an effective maximum, because there are always going to be moments in the lifetime of a unit where it's not occupied. Someone moves out, and then it takes time to identify a new tenant to move in. Once that tenant is identified and they're assigned to a unit, the actual assignment to move-in date might take some time. There are repairs and things that might have to happen to those units, same as any other residential property. So 100% utilization doesn't really happen. 90% is pretty much a full maximum. Nationally, that utilization is around 84%. So Johnson County is kind of outperforming the national average that we see there. There is one sort of tranche of supportive housing in the community that is a little bit potentially underutilized, and this is a dedicated veterans supportive housing that is at 55% capacity. I think there's about 90 units or so in the county, but of course this is population specific, so it isn't available to everybody else in the community. Currently, we have about 60 one-bedroom units in single-site developments, and then 130 units that are supported by mainstream housing vouchers and emergency housing vouchers scattered throughout the community, but still connected to services according to that supportive housing model. So the preliminary findings that we have from the model are showing a need for just about 300 units of supportive housing. 261 of those would be for individuals, so adults living alone, and around 36 of those units would be for families with children. Those numbers account for what we see in annual unit turnover and whatever potential there is for system efficiency improvements to sort of maximize how those units could be deployed. So once we look at the total need across the population data that we have, and then think about what is currently in the community and how much of that housing becomes newly available on an annual basis, we see this remaining need for just about 300 units of supportive housing. And I think with that, I'm going to pass it back to Amy.
No, I'm going to take that, Gabe. Thanks. We wanted to break out some information just to make this currently relevant for each of the municipalities, North Liberty, Coralville, and Iowa City, just to show what is currently happening in our communities. And if you read from the bottom of the slide up, we're looking at scattered site permanent supportive housing. In North Liberty, we're currently supporting 5 households. In Coralville, 36 households. And in Iowa City, 78. There is a balance of households that are still looking for housing that are being supported through our work that bring that total up to that 130 number. We just haven't found them a permanent housing location. Housing locations are frequently determined they're always determined by the individual that we're working with, but what will inform that decision is something that is in good proximity to work and trying to keep kids in school, those kinds of decisions and our efforts to try to help locate housing for them. We also included households that are being supported through rapid rehousing, homelessness prevention, because many of these households actually indicate as needing permanent supportive housing. Their complex health needs are indicating, and their experiences of homelessness are indicating that they actually need a more intensive intervention, and that is permanent supportive housing. So if you're looking at that middle line and then the top line, these numbers of households in North Liberty, a total of 62 households that are being have been supported, and then I can't do the math that quickly. 28 and 146 households in Coralville, and then you'll see the Iowa City there, just over 400 for Iowa City. And then also the amount of money that's been invested in supporting households both through rapid rehousing and homelessness prevention. I will say homelessness prevention funding will be significantly reduced as of October 1 going forward. But there has been a significant investment by Shelter House. This is money that is not going to the tenants per se. This is direct financial assistance that has gone to landlords and property managers in your communities over this period of time that's framed out here. The challenges that we face are significant to moving forward with this plan. One, we most definitely need your support, your investment, and this is just intended as an introduction for many of you to the subject matter of permanent supportive housing, but it's also an invitation to participate in the process that's going forward that Gabe will detail in a second. But just want to talk about the realities in which this work is happening. We've mentioned our current capacity. The reality of the local housing market, that it limits our ability to really expand through a scattered site approach. Our housing market is inelastic. That's not news to anyone in this room. So it limits our opportunities to grow in certain ways and take advantage of opportunities that may exist in other communities. The development timeline is just that. This isn't something that's immediate. We have an immediate and urgent pressing need. and it is significant. But to develop new units and bring those online, there are timelines. We developed 36 units in 2022 with a very aggressive development timeline of 1 year. Iowa Finance Authority has never seen any other provider do that in this community, so we're very fortunate. We had a great general contractor that we were working with. There are near-term funding cliffs because of the resources that have been utilized since the COVID pandemic to build capacity in areas such as homelessness prevention and permanent supportive housing. We are supporting currently 105 households through time-sensitive funding that will end by December of 2027, and we will no longer have the ability to support those households at that time. And there are imminent changes at the Department of Housing and Urban Development, both in priorities, policy, and practice, which stand to put at risk permanent supportive housing for 84 households who are successfully retaining their housing and have retained their housing after decades of homelessness. And the dollar amounts you can see right there that will be expiring across those indicated timelines. Gabe?
Yeah, thanks, Chrissy.
Yep.
So just to wrap things up, I wanted to situate where we are in this process and where the process is going. So earlier this year in the spring, we kicked off the needs assessment engagement. This was thinking through who the different stakeholders that we wanted to connect with were, beginning the data gathering process, so connecting to the balance of state continuum of care to get data specific to Johnson County on the households that are receiving homeless services and housing currently, or in emergency shelter and crisis interventions. And then beginning the supportive housing needs analysis. Through the fall and the next until the end of the year, we're having a number of those community stakeholder sessions. So trying to follow up both with the stakeholders that we connected with early on to help refine like those assumptions around rates of need for different populations and really dial in and make the assessment locally specific. We want to be able to bring those numbers back to those stakeholders and then also open it up to other stakeholders in the community that maybe are now interested in this work. Case in point of this presentation as well, we want to really get the word out. That feedback is really essential because, as I was describing before, the assessment process is really iterative. So we want to take all the qualitative information that we can get from having those conversations in the community around what we see in the data, translate that into different assumptions and estimates that go into the needs assessment model, and use that to really refine what we see coming out of it in terms of the need for additional supportive housing, how that breaks out across different household types, but then also in the stretch that will begin early next year and into the spring of next year, which is around developing recommendations and an implementation plan. It's one thing to sort of run a model and churn out numbers around what the need for housing is, and it's an entirely different thing to then be able to say, okay, how do we get there? And that is where also those stakeholder conversations are really critical, because this is where we can translate what we see in those numbers into strategies of how we might be able to, bring that housing online, along with the services and operating costs that are attached to it, in a way that serves families and households quickly and is also sustainable. So that's the work that will carry us through the spring and into the summer, where we'll be able to sort of present those final recommendations and implementation structure, along with the final needs assessment, back to Shelter House and all of the stakeholders in the community. So big emphasis there on just sort of the iterative nature of it and the call for community engagement and conversations. If something in here sparks interest and raises a flag for folks wanting to be involved in that process or to help refine anything that goes into the model, we are very, very excited to connect.
And that's it. With that, we'd take any questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Chrissy, can you tell me if the ICCSD is a stakeholder in this process?
I believe there's been outreach. Gabe, have you interviewed anyone from the school district yet?
We have not interviewed folks from the school district yet. I would be very excited to. I do want to frame up two interesting pieces around that because I do think there's a lot of potential in school system data. One is that schools operate under a slightly different definition of homelessness than HUD, which provides a lot of the funding for supportive housing. The McKinney-Vento definition that school districts use includes families and households that are doubled up or living in hotels and motels, which aren't considered homeless under the HUD definition. Cases can be made either way. That means that there's often a lot of really valuable information that gets looked over in the school system, and we have done some work with school systems with Amy as well in Hennepin County previously that I think have led to some really valuable outcomes on the assessment front, especially on the recommendations and implementation strategy side, because the school systems tend to be an area where we can really hone in on sort of the characteristics of those households that might need supportive housing and that are getting overlooked or otherwise struggling to get connected to services because of maybe it's language barriers at home or cultural challenges, and who is doing outreach is something that schools tend to be really great at. So that would be a really important connection to make.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. We're going to move on to item 6, which is proposed dates and hosts for a future joint entities meeting. The next one I'll note is January 12th, 2026, already looking at next year, and that'll be in North Liberty. So, and the other dates are there. We'll move on to item number 7, which is announcements for the good of the cause. Any announcements? Hearing none, we'll move on to number 8, which is adjournment. We are adjourned. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day.